Hello there, my name is Daryl Chambers, and this is my autobiography. Hope you enjoy. This autobiography will be looking at the timeline of my previous past and present and how it affected my perspective on disability and how I interpret that. So, I will be going through three big impactful stories that has changed my perspective and gave me my overall sense of identity. My first story came from when I was a very small child. Just first background information about my past is that I was born from two deaf parents. I was born hard of hearing. I'm deaf in my right ear. And my story is about how I went through elementary school um, from learning sign language as my first language. I didn't speak English until I was about 5 years old. And when I was born in Vancouver, British Columbia, they had a deaf kids school for preschool for all the deaf kids, and that would go. And I was a part of that, and that really helped develop my overall learning and understanding of speaking in sign language. It wasn't until I moved to Saskatchewan with my parents that when I was enrolled into elementary school, I first was beginning to take speech therapy classes up until about grade 5. And that really helped me develop my overall skills in speaking English. However, there was some interesting stories that was involved with that. So I like to begin with. I remember going through each of the grades, and because that kids and the background noise and a lot of miscommunication between me and the teacher, the school provided a system, a speaker system that would be put in the four corners of the room, and I would hear a hearing piece that a microphone would be attached to the teacher, and so anything that he would say, it would go into my good ear, my left, and it would help me greatly in communication so that things wouldn't be lost and I wouldn't feel left out. So that was a big impactful experience just because that I was learning English and I struggled in that area in the classroom that I was making sure that I wasn't losing all the information. So in terms of other students, they did obviously take notice in that I had a disability, but I didn't really recognize any barriers between the students and I. It was nice because like we all grew up in the same grades year after year, so they kind of just felt more comfortable with me, and the social interaction, everything was just fine. Another really great, impactful story that developed my overall sense of identity and disability was I was very heavily involved with the sport of hockey. And my parents themselves was athletes, and my father played hockey, and my mother played ringette. And so they really pushed me into sport, and the interesting perspective that I have from playing hockey was that a person with a disability being involved with that kind of dynamic and that environment was very loud, very chaotic, very high tempo. And I played as a defenseman, and I felt like my disability didn't hinder me from being involved because everything was so at a high elevated position that I didn't feel lost. And that gave me overall sense that like my disability wasn't a hindrance and that I could feel like a normal person. And everyone kind of accepted me, and you develop your social interaction skills. And sport just gave me a very great environment that I felt like my overall identity can be accepted. History is just currently in my university career, in academics, and me being involved, volunteering with the Kansas Society and getting opportunities to teach, and being involved with my overall area of interest in athletic therapy and strength and conditioning, where my hard work and ethic was rewarded. And I felt like a person with a disability and being involved with all these different things and being successful, um, that anybody with a disability can do it. And that gave me a very overall sense of purpose, and just the feeling that I can qualify for anything if I put my mind to it. My disability is not a hindrance, it's not a deficit, it's not something that people look to evaluate me based upon my experience, and because I just excelled to that area where I was involved in my university career. So it was very great to see that I was rewarded, um, and that I come from a background of people with disabilities. And that was a really great thing that I kind of noticed in my past and even now. So to kind of look back on my previous stories and experiences, I like to point some things out where, in terms of my school history and experience, it was really great to see that in terms of the speaker system, that there was great accessibility there. And I know that many individuals that experience disability may not have that same accommodation. And so I was very happy and impressed that, looking back, that I was well accommodated, and they supported me in making sure that I had the same experience as everyone else. So that was a very great thing. And my social interaction with the kids and everything like that wasn't affected due to that. I wasn't lost in the classroom. So that was very important that I kind of noticed. And in my hockey experience and physical activity, um, it was really great to see that I can be successful in those roles of where I'm with other people and I'm participating in it. It just provides an environment where I felt like I can excel and my identity was accepted, and that disability does have a place in society and community and physical activity because it's all important. So that experience in terms of being involved with athletics and hockey really provided me the development of my personality to be very extroverted, and my social interaction skills was greatly improved due to the fact that I felt like I can be accepted in all aspects of interaction and everything in society. And in terms of my current participation in university, I just kind of evaluate that a person with disability can be successful and can strive to be better, and that we all have a place, and we all should have that opportunity to have an education and have that social interaction with other people and have that ability to be involved. So that is what I take from my current experience with university and academic. I want to show you a interview that I did with my parents, and I really wanted to get the perspective of my parents and how they dealt with their disability and how they perceive their disability and identity, and how that kind of affected me, so you can kind of get better insight in my past. So enjoy that. Hey, I am Daryl Chambers, and I'm here with my parents, Sherry Chambers, my mother, and my father, Robert Chambers. And today we're going to be talking about how do we conceptualize disability and what their experiences in life was. So, Mom and Dad, in your own words, what does disability mean to you? Disability means somebody who is deaf, blind, a person in a wheelchair, or any sort of physical limitation is how I would define a person with a disability. I would have to agree with my wife, and anybody that would experience similar things, any physical limitation that that I would consider being a disability. How would you explain or define your disability? And do you think that your disability identifies yourself, or do you identify yourself apart from your disability? I would just assume myself that I'm normal, just aside from being deaf, and so therefore I would identify myself as a person that is just deaf. And similarly, I would identify myself as a person who is deaf, and that I have the similar experiences or the same abilities as anybody else would. That's how I would define myself. How would you describe your experiences in school, and were there some positives or negatives in your experiences? Some of the positives were I was attending deaf school to learn how to sign, how to speak sign language ASL, and I felt like I wasn't left out. It was perfect. However, the level of education was very, very low. Some of the negatives, when I went to hearing school, there was no available interpreter most of the time, and I felt very left out in my studies, and that was a really big barrier for me. But however, when I went to high school, I did have the ability or the experience to have an interpreter, and that made my experiences a lot more better. All right, so I understand that I am a person, and I identify myself as a person with a disability. And you know, when back in the day, there wasn't a lot of availability of interpreters, and it was a lot of speech, word of mouth that I would have to learn by myself, and so communication was very, very limited. I understand, and I just had to accept that in my experience. What is your experience with physical activity or sports, and did you have some positive and negative experience with that? I played. The kind of sport that I played was ringette. Growing up, I grew up playing many years of ringette, and I was involved with hearing people. I was the only deaf girl playing ringette, and I played very, very well. And I played center. Center was my position in hockey, or sorry, in ringette. And in 1984, Canada picked me to be part of Canada's team, the hearing team, to go to Europe, to Finland, for the Olympics. And that was, once again, it was held in Finland. And we played all the entire games, and we won a lot of the games. And at the very end of the tournament, we got first place. And so when they were announcing the most valuable player award, first place, second place, and third place, they were moving on and on. So for the most valuable player, they called on our team, and they pointed to me to go. And I said, okay, skated over there, met the announcer, and the announcer gave me the mic, and they were shocked that I was completely deaf. They didn't know how to react to that, and they didn't even understand or weren't even aware that I was deaf during the entire tournament. But that was an interesting experience for me. But no, I am deaf, and I was able to succeed, and I was a great player. I have to congratulate my wife on that. But I played sports throughout my life, and the biggest one was hockey, and I played the position of goaltender, and I played for 26 years through the hearing teams, and that's how I was able to really get a lot better at reading lips. But I actually played at the level of junior B, but however, there was an experience. I was disappointed that I was actually scouted to go play in the NHL, and I was almost upon an opportunity, but they found out that I was deaf, and so that I wasn't able to do that. But however, there was the World Winter Games in 1974 in Lake Placid in New York, where the tournament we went. And I went with the Team Canada, and we succeeded, and we won. And it was a great experience with that. But I like to play hockey, and that was a really good positive experience growing up. So your experiences with sports, did they help give you a sense of identity, or not really? I'm proud of what my accomplishments are, and I felt like it did contribute to my identity as a person who was deaf, and that I can succeed at any level. You know, I wasn't defeated in any way, and I am who I am, and I'm proud of that. I had a lot of experiences, and I felt like it did give me a sense of identity as well. And you know, I just grew to love the game, and it wasn't a matter if I was deaf or not. It was a matter of how well I could play the game, and that's how I succeeded and how I liked the game. As you were raising me as a child, and you found out that I was hard of hearing, was there any suggestions to doing a cochlear implant? And what was your opinion on that, and why? I don't believe to fix a person's disability. He was made the way that he was made, and let it be natural. My family history has had hard of hearing and deafness in the family, and I looked up to that, and I seen that, and I didn't see any problem with that. So it was a way of life, and it was a natural way of life. So we left it as it was, and he turned out completely fine, and I'm proud of him, and I don't see any issue with that. So that was my opinion with that. I seen my son, and he grew up happy all the time, and no problems with anything else, and a similar answer that we felt like it was perfectly normal to have that, so we didn't feel like there was any reason to change that. I don't want. Oh, he's saying that deafness is a great thing to have because you can't really hear anything else, and you can sleep soundly at night. So I have a question for my son. I'm wondering, how was it for you? What was it like for you to have deaf parents? And as you grew up, in your community, other friends, stuff like that, I'm wondering, what were the positive and negatives with that? Okay, put me on the spot. That's good. Honestly, I grew up, like you mentioned before, that it was just normal for me. Since I spoke sign language first, and I didn't speak English until I was about 5 or 6 years old, right? So that was normal for me, and honestly, I am very proud of my parents because there are a lot of differences and inequalities in the community, and you were able to raise me as you wanted to be, and I turned out very successful and fine. So you taught me a lot of good morals. You taught me how to be a good person. You taught me how to be successful, and that's how I want to treat other people. So that's positives. Negatives, I would say that I have witnessed a lot of discrimination against people with disabilities, and with your deafness, people perceive you first as a person with a disability, and not yourselves as your own independent person. That's the only negative that I see, but that doesn't define who you are, and like I said, I'm very proud, and I love you guys. The one ongoing theme that I have noticed in my past and as I was growing up with my parents is that we have lived in poverty for most of my life, and that's heavily due to the fact that there's not much accessibility and opportunity and even job opportunities that is available for people with disabilities. And I've seen many times again that my mother and father have been, neglected and prevented from having job opportunities solely the fact of their disability. Employers and people look at them and say, well, they can't do it because they're deaf, and they miss out on those opportunities. and that affects all aspects of their life, their identity, their confidence, their social interaction, and everything like that. So I've noticed growing up those barriers in society that is built to make sure that they don't succeed. And I am very, very grateful and proud of my parents that they have provided me with all of the means to be successful and making sure that I can be the best person that I can be. So I think that's important to to identify and show that there are these things are continuing in society, and society needs to be better in connecting um, those communities with people with disabilities, especially in the sport realm and physical activity, because that's one of the things that, in my experience with hockey, that I felt accepted. I felt that there was contact with other social communities, and that really helped me developing into the person I am today. So, in closing, I would like to say thank you for watching my autobiography and listening to my stories and my experiences with my disability. And I just want to leave you with a note and remember that people with disabilities is the same as you. And we are all human beings. We all need love. We all need opportunities. And it's up to you and be responsible and be involved and care and provide those means to everyone. So thank you for watching.